Good evening. I am Devi Ward, and welcome to Better Love and Sex, your resource, I hope, for holistic sex education. I want to thank you for joining us this evening for another amazing conversation about how we all can have more conscious sexual experiences, more conscious sexual relationships, and ultimately more conscious sexual enjoyment and pleasure, because amen, pleasure is the spice of life. More than the spice, I think it is the foundation for all of life. It is the foundation for our motivation to do anything. If it sucks and we don't get pleasure from it, we don't usually want to do it. So pleasure in all its myriad forms is a significant motivating factor, I believe, for all of us as human beings. This evening, we are going to talk about how we can have more pleasure by healing, curing, and transforming sexually transmitted diseases or illnesses, however you want to frame that. I am having this topic this evening because I have had many requests around the topic of safe sex in general and also STD prevention. So I'm going to take a minute and share that I believe that in regards to safe sex, there are kind of two orientations. One of the orientations is as birth control. So how do you prevent unwanted pregnancies? And as we all know, there's a variety of different methods and pills and things you can take, natural and unnatural tools that you can use to prevent unwanted pregnancies. My personal favorite method of birth control when I am in relationship with a partner that I am not using any other form of protection with, my personal favorite method is the rhythm method, coupled with semen retention. And we will have to have another show down the line where I can explain to you why that is so incredibly effective. But for this evening, we are going to focus on STI and STD prevention and healing and cures. As most of us are aware, condoms are generally the most effective method for preventing the transmission of most sexually transmitted illnesses. But the reality is that condoms are only partially effective they're only effective against or preventing some STDs, and those are the STDs that are passed through genital fluids, which are STDs such as gonorrhea, chlamydia, HIV, and trick, which is the full version is trichomoniasis, and I apologize for slaughtering that. I just learned about that today doing research. I didn't even know that one existed, but I'm glad to be using condoms to make sure that I don't get it. But when we're talking about some of the more stigmatized STDs, such as herpes simplex virus, syphilis, HPV, and cancroid, condoms are not necessarily going to be effective because these STDs or illnesses are transmitted through skin-to-skin contact. So what that means is if you are with a partner who has a herpes outbreak on their mons pubis, and you are rubbing your mons pubis against their mons pubis, your mons pubis, the fleshy mound above the genitals for both men and women, that is not covered by a condom at all. So if they have an outbreak, whether they're aware of it or not, or they're shedding at that moment in time, you are not necessarily going to be protected, quote unquote, from the transmission of that virus, because it is being passed from skin-to-skin contact. So, what can we do? What can we do to protect ourselves or prevent getting a sexually transmitted illness, short of wrapping ourselves in saran wrap, of course? So what can we do to prevent that? And once we have an STD, if we do happen to contract one, what can we do to heal that, transform it, and cure it? Because I am of the belief and the actual experience that any illness that can be understood can be healed and purified. I am a living example of having cured illnesses that were supposedly incurable. and these illnesses were cured via natural healing remedies. So this evening, I have invited a wonderful guest to support us in understanding the causes and cures associated with STDs, particularly HPV. Our guest this evening is Joanne Amaya Cohen, and she is an expert herbalist and flower essence therapist, as well as an inspirational speaker and feminine embodiment mentor. She is also the author of an upcoming book, The Art of Healthy Feminine Leadership. So thank you so much, Joanne, for joining us this evening.
It's great. It's exciting.
So I was really turned on. I came across some videos, a video series that you had done a while back, and I watched a video, and you talked about the naturally healing and naturally curing HPV, which is, it's kind of a vast illness. And again, in doing the research for the show, I was surprised about a number of things, such as there's 100 different strains of HPV. That pretty much everybody will have HPV at least once in their life, which also, begs the question, is HPV then, if you have it at one time of your life and then not the other, does that mean once you get the virus, it leaves your body at some point, or once you have it, do you have it forever? So could you shed some light on HPV and how it actually works in the physical body for us?
Yes. Well, I'll share my perspective of it in healing my own self and then also working with clients, is that it's a virus. And so generally, viruses are repairable or healable is another way of saying it. And there are so many different strains of it, and there's so much varied information out there. So I know that many women go onto the internet and they read and they're just like, oh my gosh, I have to get everything my doctor's telling me to get. I have to not only get the biopsy, but then, the LEEP procedure. And, although they're not quote unquote invasive in the sense of surgery, they still are invasive. They still, the LEEP procedure still it's a procedure where a part of the cervix is frozen. And that can create issues down the line for a woman, especially if she later goes on to get pregnant. And then during labor, it can create scar tissue that really challenges the cervix to open fully, to dilate. So although in the moment it almost seems easy to follow certain things that the doctor says, it can lead to issues down the line. And because you said, Devi, there's so many strains, I'm just going to talk about really the ones that are what I would consider more mild to moderate. The thing about HPV is that it's very easy to get. And the more times that a woman tests positive for it, the greater risk for cervical cancer. And that's where a lot of the fear comes in, is it's actually usually not just the first time and probably not the second time, but it's repeated infections of HPV.
Okay, can I interject just for clarity? So are you saying that, and this is something that I read that also piqued my interest. So are you saying that I could get HPV and then but it's not forever, it goes away and
it's not forever.
Okay,
exactly.
Right. So that's huge, because so many people that I talk to say that once you have HPV, you have it forever because it's a virus. But you're saying, and other sources say, that it actually will leave your system.
It's a virus. Yeah, exactly. And again, because there's so many strains, it is important that we're talking about the more mild to moderate. So there are strains that are actually you're just about on the border of cancerous cells. Mm-hmm. But most of the time when you get a pap smear, it comes back that there's precancerous cells. That's part of the HPV kind of diagnosis. So we're like you said, there's a whole range of different strains. It is a virus. Viruses, the beauty of our body, as I know that you talk about on every show, I'm sure, is that the body's so brilliant. The clitoris, oh my God. so brilliant. There's one spot on our body that creates that much pleasure. The immune system is so brilliant. It's meant to fight off virus. So if you can help your body to increase its immune function, then the dysregulation can't get out of hand, and a virus can be healed. And I've used herbs and flower essences in my experience working with women who have HPV and myself. And, it's interesting because I make a lot of YouTube videos. And, people meander and they look around, but I made an HPV video, and it has like 11 or 12,000 hits. Like, it's a really big conversation, and so I'm so glad that we're talking about this.
Well, yes, because, there was the big scare a while back with, what's that dude, the guy who got oral cancer, he said, from going down on his sexy wife, Catherine, I can't remember their names, Michael Douglas, right?
Oh, I have no idea what's happening. Fill me in.
It was a while ago, right, when Michael Douglas had throat cancer, and he said that he got it from going down on Catherine Zeta-Jones. Oh, you didn't hear about that? Oh, that was a big thing. Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So he claimed it was throat cancer was caused by HPV from giving his partner oral sex. So there was this big scandal around it, right? And so it's been a topic in people's consciousness and awareness, along with all the other STIs. So I do want to circle back as far as viruses and how you are celebrating the human immune system, because I'm in agreement. I believe that our bodies are designed to heal themselves. And again, if we can understand what the block is and we can remove the block, then the body will do its job to heal itself. So do you also extend that to supposedly incurable STIs such as herpes, for example?
For sure.
Absolutely. Okay.
The thing is, I could talk about this forever because what I have seen in my practice over 14 years is that most people have some sort of symptom, right? It's like something happens in our life, we get a symptom, we kind of ignore it for a while, we think, oh, it'll go away, and then somehow the symptom starts affecting our life. So for sure, that could be something like herpes, where it's actually painful, or you have to stop having sex with your partner when you're having an outbreak, which creates, a lot of conversations in relationships. So usually we start to focus on something when it's affecting our life. And what I have found, and my specialty is with women, so I'm really just speaking from that perspective. I'm sure it crosses over into men, but I'm speaking from women, is that 98% of the time, and I would use 100, but I'm just going to say 98% of the time, there is an underlying reason why that symptom is there. Mm-hmm. That can be physical, but most of the time, especially with women, there is an emotional component to why that symptom has manifested in her body. Mm-hmm. So generally for women, there's been some sort of wounding. And I say this actually in a very broad way because it could be blatant sexual abuse, traumatic, horrific sexual abuse, but it could really be anytime a woman's boundaries were crossed when she said yes and she really wanted to say no, anytime her self-worth was questioned, anytime she, thought perfection would be proof of her strength, like any time there's been wounding to the feminine, there's an imprint that gets created in her body, and when it doesn't get processed, it ultimately comes out as a physical symptom. So I have worked with many women with HPV and herpes, and basically that imprint creates a susceptibility for something to come into the body or for something to manifest in the body. And both of those, HPV and herpes, I have used flower essences mostly, but also supported the immune system with herbs to heal, like really create healing. And this is why this radio show is so amazing, because you have hosts on it that are bringing such different information than what their doctor is telling them or the mainstream media. There's
Absolutely.
A whole other world that's here for healing to occur.
And absolutely, because I've spoken with so many women and men who believe and feel that their life is over because they have a quote unquote incurable disease. And especially when it comes to STDs, right?
Yeah.
There's so much shame. It's like, you can go out and you can catch the flu or a cold and that's just fine and accepted. But my God forbid you get chlamydia. I mean, it's like you're a worthless piece of shit.
Right.
There's so much shame and there's so much shame. And stigmatized, which I think, of course, compounds it and makes it even worse. But what I really revolt against is the Western approach that once you have it forever, and that's just it. So, like, basically, put a nail in your coffin, you're done. As opposed to the perspective that you're sharing, that there is a cause, because that's the thing about Western medicine, in my experience. Not saying it's all bad. It has its uses, right? If you need heart surgery, set a broken leg. But when it comes to, illnesses particularly, the approach is to simply mask or pacify the symptoms without actually addressing the root cause. And what it sounds like you're sharing is that in your experience, the root cause, the root of it is usually an emotional trauma, an emotional pain, an emotional imprint that weakens the immune system and allows the virus or the illness to take hold. Is that accurate?
Pretty much. Yeah, you did a great summarization. Yeah. I mean, the thing about any physical symptoms is an invitation for curiosity of, rather than us just going into, well, I got to fix this and I got to get rid of it and, just treating the symptom, which doesn't actually create healing. It might create health for a moment, but it doesn't create healing. It's really an opportunity, an invitation from our body to get really curious. Mm-hmm. What's going on here? What's happening? Why is my body doing this? Rather than feeling like my body's working against me, it's like, wow, my body's giving me an opportunity to see that something is revealing itself.
I love that. That's such a beautiful approach, and that's exactly the approach that I take when it comes to sexual healing. It's like if we have these areas of numbness and pain, it's an indication that the body is doing its job. It's letting us know that there's a block, if there's some wounding, there's some trauma, there's energy that's crying out for our attention to be healed, transformed, and released. So what a beautiful, beautiful approach to any kind of illness, particularly STDs. So, Joanne, in this climate of Western medicine that says, once you have this, you have it forever, put the scarlet H on your forehead and walk around in shame for the rest of your life. In this climate of that, we those people who are diagnosed with herpes or, any kind of STD are going to be prone to following doctor's orders, which would include taking medications that are potentially harmful. I know Valtrex is a nightmare and really nasty for most people. So, a lot of people aren't aware of alternative healing methods or even the importance of perhaps not just following doctor's orders. So why do you feel it's so important and so vital for women to take their health back and not necessarily listen exactly to doctor's orders?
Well, I mean, the simplest answer for that, because it's such a big question and conversation, is no one knows your body better than you do. Mm-hmm. That's just the simple truth. And in our modern day of medicine, as you said earlier, we don't have to bash doctors and allopathic medicine, but we do need to be mindful of places that there's weakness in that system. And when a doctor is seeing numerous patients in 1 hour, there's a way in which you just become one woman in a sea of women. Mm-hmm. And you're not looked at as unique and specific. And the recommendations are just a blanket protocol rather than really being tuned into, just as we were talking about earlier, the curiosity. Like, why is this happening? What's going on? What's this woman's stress like? What's her relationship like? Is she having sex? Does she have sexual trauma? Does she love her job? Does she have people that she loves in her life? Like, who is this woman? And that, to me, is the very foundation of how we need to be approaching medicine and then creating protocols for every woman as unique. So that's really important because there is, as you know, there's no one-size-fits-all. Mm-hmm. And every woman needs to be accounted for her specific situation and circumstance. So it's very important for each woman to take back her own health, to read books, to look online, to possibly, join different forums, get other opinions, and then make a rational/intuitive choice about what path seems to be the best.
So when it comes to HPV, and we'll just put it in the context of cervical cancer, and you get an abnormal pap smear, and all hell breaks loose. They rush you off to the hospital, and you have to get a biopsy, and what you mentioned at the beginning of the show, I can't remember, it started with an L, a lesion or lesion or whatever. Yeah. So it seems as though those oftentimes can be really kind of harsh and intensive
and scary.
And scary, terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things to always ask your doctor is, can I wait 3 months to do the leap? Can I wait 6 months? And if your doctor says, oh, yeah, or yeah, of course, then it's not a true emergency. It's not like life or death. And so part of it is just being curious, as we've been talking about, of asking questions. The worst thing anyone can say is absolutely not. And the truth is, then it becomes up to you to make an informed choice. That's what all medicine is all about, is as the patient, you have the responsibility to make an informed choice. The thing is, in the hospitals these days and with doctors, true informed consent doesn't totally exist, because what that means is that your doctor sits with you and goes through the pros and cons of every single procedure and answers every question, and from that point you make an informed decision. Most doctors are overworked and don't have that time, and so it becomes whether it's good or bad, it becomes our place that we become our own advocate. So for the LEAP procedure, or if we're talking about HPV, it's like, do you have 6 months? And if your doctor says, oh, yeah, generally in 6 months, if we're talking about mild to moderate HPV, the body will heal itself. And I'm happy to give recommendations of how to even enhance the immune system to work better so that it heals even more quickly. So when you go back for your next pap smear, you get great, perfect, healthy results.
Okay,
but that's a really important question to always ask. Can I wait?
Okay. Can I wait? So say I go to the doctor tomorrow and I get an abnormal pap smear. You're recommending that I ask the doctor before they send me to the hospital, say, hey, can I wait 3 to 6 months? And if the doctor's like, yeah, no problem, but we really recommend, they're going to pressure you, right? Well, we really recommend you do it as soon as possible. But okay, but can I wait? Yes, you can wait. So in that case, what do I do next? What are my next steps?
Yeah. Well, first, they're always going to do a biopsy, because when the pap comes back abnormal, their first thing is to do a biopsy to see what is actually happening. So let's say after the biopsy comes back, they say, okay, here's the next thing, do a LEAP procedure, and you ask that question. And they say, fine, sure, wait. So again, the immune system is so smart that when given the opportunity, it can heal a virus. And to be proactive and to take responsibility of your health. One of the herbal formulas that I always recommend to my clients is made by this company called Avena Botanicals. That's spelled A-V, like vagina. I just had to say that.
Yeah, baby.
A-V-E-N-A, Avena Botanicals. You can go onto their website, avenabotanicals.com, and they make a product called, I think it's called Immune Soup. And it's fantastic. It gets shipped to you. It's this massive bag of dried mushrooms and I actually can't remember exactly what's in it, but it's dried mushrooms and I think astragalus, which is really amazing for the immune system. I'd have to read what's exactly in it. And basically it gives you this whole way to cook this soup for a day. And then one of the things that I tell my clients is actually to pour that soup by a bunch of different ice cube trays and pour that soup into the ice cube trays, put it in your freezer, and every day for 6 weeks, you put 1 or 2 of these ice cubes into warm water, just like you're having tea, and for 6 weeks you're having this tea. And it's deeply, deeply immune building and rich. I mean, mushrooms themselves are anti-cancer, anti-tumor, antifungal, anti-parasitic, antiviral. Like mushrooms themselves are so rich for the immune system. And the immune system's like, woohoo! You know, I'm gonna really thrive and enhance myself. And so not only does your body do that naturally with the HPV, but then you're giving a little extra every day for 6 weeks.
So then, in your experience, have you found this helpful for herpes, for example?
You know, I do something different for herpes. Herpes, I found that it's a little bit trickier, only because some people have had it for up to 20 or 30 years and don't know it.
Right,
so
exactly.
It's really deep in the immune system. And the other, I mean, HPV, actually, it can be in the body for 2 years before it even tests positive on the pap smear. But herpes can go that many more years without having even an initial outbreak. So one of the things that I do and I've learned is that viruses, and this is where we get like a little bit more scientific, viruses actually have a rhythm. So let's say it's like a beat. So let's say it's just like doom, doom, doom. Let's say that's the herpes rhythm. I'm just totally making that up.
I like that.
I'm just saying doom. Like it has a rhythm.
It's like a rave beat.
Yeah, I'm just giving like an audio experience here. So with flower essences, there's a specific flower that helps with herpes because it starts to shift the rhythm so that the virus has to shift in itself because the rhythm is being broken up. Same for like hepatitis C. Like we have to break up the rhythm. So there's an incredible flower essence made by a company called Delta Gardens. Again, you can go to deltagardens.com. And it's pansy flower. And pansy has a resonance specifically with the herpes virus. Again, there's lots of other flowers for various viruses, just like, you know, every flower has a different medicinal quality. So there are other flowers for viruses, but pansy has a real strong affinity to herpes. So sometimes I will just give clients a bottle of the pansy and tell them how to take it. And like I said before, there's also a little investigation of what in this woman's body made her susceptible to contracting that virus in the first place. And so we have to do a little bit more deeper exploration. And then whatever we find, we can also make a specific flower essence formula for whatever is revealed.
Transmuting that emotional imprint. In your experience, how often is it a result of sexual trauma that's been unprocessed?
Often. And again, like I said in the beginning, it doesn't have to be this like blatant, you know, abuse, molestation. It can also be ways in which women were very subtly. Perhaps it's an easy wound to overlook almost, especially when we compare our stories to somebody else. But I would say many, 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 many times, the majority of the time, there is some emotional trauma connected to women's health issues in general, whether we're talking about sexually transmitted diseases or painful cycles or fertility issues or fibroids, or we're such emotive creatures, not just women, but men. And when things are really traumatic, generally when they're happening in our childhood or even our adolescence, we don't have the tools to process through them. And so we shove them down, and we shove them deep down into our bodies and our psyches. And at some point, it catches up to us. At some point, those imprints become something else.
They manifest physically.
They manifest physically. It's sort of the last place that they come forward. And like I said earlier, it's amazing because we're given the little wave of, hey, girlfriend, pay attention to me. I need a little TLC. And they also allow us to go deeper into our own healing.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that sexual shame is a trauma that, like you said, it's so subtle that it can often be overlooked. And in my research around trauma, I was surprised to learn that trauma is specifically defined as any experience in which the nervous system itself perceives a threat, whether that threat is real or just perceived, and that threat can be perceived below the rational conscious thinking mind. So I may have an experience where I'm walking, down the hallway in high school. This didn't actually happen to me, but it happened to my friend. And there's a bunch of guys standing around. They are like, you fucking slut, right? And for that girl, that young woman, she could feel that violent energy coming towards her. And her nervous system could be like, holy fuck, I'm about to get killed right now. And could hold that, go into fight or flight or freeze mode. And if she isn't able to actually rationally process that experience, it will be held in the body as an imprint of trauma, which is sexual shame, associated with sexual shame. So that to me is how incredibly subtle and fine-tuned the human nervous system is. We don't even have to know it's a threat. We just we don't even have to consciously process it as a threat. If the nervous system perceives violent, aggressive energy, then it will go into fight or flight mode, whether we're aware of it or not. That's freaking profound to me.
It's incredible. I mean, that's again the brilliance. It's like the body creates this defense mechanism that's actually trying to keep you safe. And over time, it stops serving you, and that's why it comes out as either aggression at your partner or low libido or HPV. But in the beginning, it's really meant to actually protect you.
Well, we are going to take a quick break, and you said something right there that really piqued my interest. That trauma could come out later as low libido or aggression towards your partner. So that's important because a lot of women struggle and suffer with low libido, and they think they're broken, number one, and that there's something wrong with them. And number two, looking for, physical remedies when actually it can be an indication of a deeper emotional issue going on. So along with our emotions contributing to our physical health, obviously they contribute to our mental health and the health and wellness of our relationships. So in regards to previous sexual trauma or sexual shame impacting our libido later in life, how does that manifest? What are some of the other ways in which that may show up?
Do you mean physically, emotionally, or either?
Let's go with all of the above.
Okay. I think there's an epidemic amongst women of just irritability. It's like the modern woman's epidemic. And what I have experienced in my own self and with my clients is that the irritability is coming from needs not being met. So whether that's a woman not even sharing her needs with her partner or sharing them and then not having their partner meet them, it's this low level of my needs aren't being met. And so when we compound that with the busyness of our life and our world, it makes things very irritating. And when a woman isn't being met or a woman doesn't feel like her partner can hold her or, quote unquote, handle her, in all of her range of emotions, she can get pissed off. And if she doesn't get pissed off, then she's suppressing that anger and rage, and that in itself can ultimately lead to feeling shut down sexually towards your partner or shut down just in life in general. It's like everything's connected. There is no separation between what's happening in our minds, in our bodies, in our souls, and then what's happening in our current life circumstances.
Absolutely. Mind, body, spirit connection. And that is a thing that is so underrated in our Western culture. You know, I love, there's a lot of wonderful things about Western culture, but the thing that is disappointing for me, having practiced in Eastern traditions for many, many years, is the lack of understanding of the wholeness, how it's a whole picture, how there is no separation, like you said, between our internal experience and our external experience. What's going on in our mind is going to be directly reflected in what's happening in our bodies and what's happening in our emotions, what's happening in our external life, right? So it's treating it as a whole as opposed to these little separate, different parts, compartmentalized.
Exactly. And so if we're talking about low libido, to me, it's like, let's focus on both pieces. So it doesn't have to be either or, it's, both and. So there's incredible herbs that a woman can be taking to facilitate her libido. And a lot of times it could just be addressing the adrenals that are just pooped from the constant movement of life. And so giving herbs that really nourish and restore the adrenals, and also looking at the emotions, like, why is her libido low? What's going on in her relationship? What's going on in her life? Are her needs being met? All of those things. So we can look at the full range.
Beautiful. So you are a flower essence expert therapist. So what are some, if you would be willing to share, some flower essences that people can explore, some remedies? I know you gave one for herpes, which is pansy flower, and then some herbs for boosting the immune system, your immune soup, which I would imagine would be great just like regardless of what.
Exactly. Yeah, that immune soup, like now that we're going into the fall and winter, that's a great thing to just take in general. Exactly.
Awesome.
As far as flower essences, so again, with flower essences, it's, although I want to help somebody feel better, let's say we're talking about low libido or irritability, I'm always looking at, well, why is that there? So there's many reasons why that can be there. Flower essences that would be beneficial. Oh my gosh, there's so many. So motherwort is really fantastic to help to create healthy and appropriate boundaries. So sometimes our irritability is coming because we're saying yes to everything, and we're not saying no and nourishing and prioritizing ourselves. And so again, if that's happening in the dynamic of your relationship and you're feeling taken advantage of, then your libido is definitely going to go down because you're just giving and giving and giving, and then you have nothing to give, or you're feeling resentful. So motherwort helps to create really good boundaries and saying, actually, this is my time. I'm going to focus on me. Also, elm, like the elm tree, is incredible for overwhelm. Overwhelm leads to irritation. Irritation leads to overwhelm. So making sure that the overwhelm is being appeased is fantastic.
Can I pause you there? You there? Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. How do flower essences work?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's like magic.
Like, what are
how
they?
Do they work? What are they and how do they work?
I know. They're like total miracles. Basically, so a flower essence is different than an herb. When you drink an herbal tea, you're drinking the physical part of a plant. And so let's say you're making a cup of chamomile tea and you're using it to relax. So the physical part of the plant you're ingesting, it works on the physical. So then we have all these emotional pieces. And so flower essences are just another branch of botanical medicine. And basically they're the vibration or the spirit, the essence of a flower. And you ingest them internally, and when you take them internally, they meet your essence and your spirit. And so how they work is that they actually start to move out so that you can process them. They move out just like some junk and gunk and limiting beliefs and fears and self-doubts, old patterns, old ways of being. Move that from the subconscious to the conscious mind where they can be released and processed, and you can move on. they're considered a subtle therapy, and so sometimes you take a flower essence and you've been dealing with an issue for so long, like, I'm so irritable with my partner, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I haven't been upset with him for a couple of days. So that's the subtle way that they work, which is fantastic and amazing. And sometimes they really bring up deeper pains for you to feel and look at, and not only just heal, but also shift some of your behaviors. Mm-hmm. I love them. They have saved my life. I have a flower essence practitioner certification program. Like, I want to get this medicine out into the world, because I'm not exaggerating it at all, but there's yet to be an issue that the flower essences haven't been able to help, in my experience.
So then for somebody who's just kind of exploring this, as a new medicine, do you think they can like self-medicate, or should they go to, like someone such as yourself or a practitioner to actually understand what the heck they need and how to use it, that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, with anything, it's always great to go to a practitioner, because we can't always see, what's that expression? You can't see the forest through the trees. It's like, right. We can't always see our own issues, because we're looking at the lens, So it's great. I mean, and the thing about plant medicines is they've always been the people's medicine. So they are really accessible. You can go into most Whole Foods markets. You can go into a lot of different local health food stores, and they have flower essence companies with their flower essences, and you can read through the little pamphlets, and you can totally choose, oh, this sounds really good. So you can start to create a little home apothecary for yourself and buy as needed, and it's always going to be more powerful to go to a practitioner and more quick.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has just been awesome chatting with you and just celebrating the miracle and the beauty of the human body and the human design, and again affirming for all of us how the body is designed to heal itself. And if we can understand what's in the way and kind of pull the thorn out, pull the splinter out, so to speak, then it will heal naturally. And I love the wisdom that you shared with us about these natural plant medicines to support the healing process of the body. Are any other words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience this evening?
Oh, I mean, I'm just so happy that we had an opportunity to talk about it. And I would say, again, just be your own advocate. Do some really thorough research about what is going on in your body so that you can make an informed choice. And know that there's a whole world of plant medicines that are potent and powerful for your healing.
Thank you once again, Joanne. It's been just brilliant having you on the show.
Thank you, Devi. Thank you.
And absolutely inspiring. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in and joining us this evening. I hope you receive some really valuable information to enhance your health and wellness and help you feel more at ease and more peaceful with your current sexual experience.